Okay, welcome everyone. Uh, Today I thought I will share one of my project, which was ethnographic study, which I did actually quite a long time ago. But I never actually talked about my visual dissemination, why I did it in first place, and the process I followed, and some of the challenges I've actually encountered during that time, and impact stories from that same study. So I thought it would be, it's first time for me. So hope you enjoy these stories. Okay, so visual dissemination. I really like this way of reporting my research, visual dissemination. I will tell you why I actually started visual dissemination in first place. But these are some of the titles of some of the journal articles actually, and you can see that visual research reports are gaining quite popularity. So people saying that visual storytelling enhances knowledge disseminations, picture worth 1,000 views, and video stories actually provide many touch points, allowing learners to share their own stories and get more eyes on your work. So, and these are quite contemporary from, I mean, it's just last 3 years, people published these works based on their visual research reports. So why me? Why I actually choose to do visual dissemination? And you can see this is from a press report, and from the color, you can see it's quite old. And I was quite young that time, but the press report, which says this was an issue that I had to do something about, which was very true. It was kind of an inner calling for me because I was a researcher for a long time and I was working for people who don't raise their voice, and I was working for some of the very difficult topics while I was in India. But I realized there are, um, not any participants get to read the research reports because those are actually academic reports. So I wanted, first of all, I wanted to bring back my research reports for my participants, and then also giving voice to the people who hardly actually engage with academic research. So again, it's engaging non-academic community with the academic research and bringing back the research report to community. So those are actually my main motives. And I've always wanted to use my research as a catalyst for change, even it changes one individual or a group's their confidence. I think I would consider myself a successful researcher. So that's another reason I wanted to do this dissemination in visual format. So I'm actually talking about gray side of the sky. Again, you can see there is another press release, and it's nicely captured actually what this study was about. It was life in Britain as told by three generations of British Asian women in Buckinghamshire. I was living that time in Buckinghamshire, and I was working very closely with those British Asian women groups as well. So it was an ethnographic study, and 26 participants took part in the study. They came from different spheres of life, to be honest. I had two town mayors taking part in my study. And then I had social worker, I had community youth worker, nurse, doctors, students. It was quite a range of professionals taking part. in this study. And they were from different ages as well, as you can see there, from 3 generations. And to conduct this study, I obtained the ethics approval from Bucks New University. I was that time was the honorary research associate of Bucks New University. And this is the first research study I did after coming to the UK. So it was, for me, it was quite a kind of a revealing experience for me. I collected, as you can see, this is a qualitative study. So I collected my data, mostly individual interviews, and there were 2 focus group interviews. And all the data was collected in audio and video format. So these are kind of very information of gray side of the sky in a nutshell. So gray side of the sky is actually the name of documentary film out of the research I did. So gray side of the sky is the visual name of visual dissemination. So the process I followed with that data collection, with that audio recorded and video recorded data, I've actually collected more than 30 hours of data. It's actually around 35. So I had to watch that data over and over again. I don't know even how many times I've watched each interviews, and many times. And because I had to understand what they are saying, it's not only transcription, you have to understand. And many times they actually switched between their mother language and English, and I never stopped them. Because when you are sharing your own stories, your stories from migration, so they became quite emotional, and they started to talk in their mother language. So again, I had to use some professional translation services as well for the translation. And then I transcripted all the video recording by hand. Sorry, I didn't know that NVivo existed that time. And I was not trained on NVivo as well during that time. So I did transcription all my hand. And then based on the transcription and my reading, I created themes, coded those data and created themes, as you all do when you do qualitative research. And this on the left-hand side, honestly, I never thought I would share my rough handwriting and paper editing, but this is the way I edited, because ultimately, if it's a documentary film or if it's a video, visual reports, you have to edit and kind of storyboard what you are trying to put into your video or documentary film, whatever you say. So you can see on the left-hand side, it's actually timeline of those recorded video. And even I can see I have used Bengali in some of the places when I did very quickly. So yeah, that's one of the stage. I did paper editing and storyboarding according to those identified themes I created from the transcription. And finally, the final editing was done on Final Cut Pro, which is a video editing software. And luckily, actually, I have in my family a very experienced video film editor, so that was very handy. And after that final editing, the documentary film, Gray Side of the Sky, was ready to release. So this is the process I followed. Even though I said in few minutes, it took us 7 months from finishing the data collection and releasing the film, first screening the film, not release. Okay, challenges. Only few challenges I have actually added here. There were loads and loads of other challenges, but I think it would be fair to share these challenges with you. So first of all, finding participants for the study. And this is not only for this study, whoever, I mean, you all know, if you are working with on a qualitative project and you want to engage participants, finding participants is always tough. And especially for the community and for the groups who never actually took part in any this kind of academic research, it was really difficult to convince them and sharing the information, sharing what you were exactly wanted to do. So it took me quite a long time. So I've actually went to more than 80 women, and finally 26 took part. I still think 26 participants is a great numbers for any qualitative study. And especially these women never actually raised their voice, they never shared their stories. And this is the first time I am asking them to sit in front of camera, which is quite frightening even for me. So it was difficult, but all those 26 women, they were very courageous and they took part in my study. Second is safeguarding myself. Look, you all do ethics application and you all write safeguarding researchers, safeguarding participants. But I actually realized how important that is in this work. Because again, because these women, they never shared their stories before. And this is the first time they're trying to talk about their experiences. Many of their families and friends, they didn't like. So I had to face quite, number of times that kind of obstructions and sometimes quite aggressive behaviors from their families and friends. So sometimes I had to stop my interviews and come back. But to be honest, credit goes to those courageous women who actually convinced their families and then came back to finish their interviews. So safeguarding myself was a great challenge of this study, and I actually learned a lot from this study as well. And then expectations of solving issues, because I was working very closely with them and I gained trust with those groups, with those women. So they wanted to do more, kind of, because they shared their struggles, their problems, they wanted me to solve. And as you know, we don't have that power. We can share their stories, we can raise those concerns, we can bring those issues to people, but we can't solve any issues. That's a difficulty for us researchers as well. And the next is our insider and outsider kind of entity. I almost became one of them. So because I was actually looking at their stories, reading their stories, looking at the interview, watching their interviews over and over again, I almost became one of them. And I come from the same background as well, like many of the participants. So at one time, I couldn't actually decide which one to take and which one to ignore, or which is most important and which is less important, because I thought these are real stories. These are not data. These are real stories of women. So I had to include everything. But then again, even though I am inside a researcher, I had to create that barrier and sort of take a distance from becoming one of them. And then part consents from participants. Some participants didn't consent to record their videos, which is difficult for including in this kind of visual reports again. And because of one participant didn't consent to put it in, put the recording. visual dissemination in any social media. That's why it's not on YouTube. So again, these are some of the challenges I had to face. And last is the most difficult challenge that was came from community leaders, because they thought that I made a research project to blame Asian men, that because of them, these women are suffering, which was wrong. But it was, I mean, they actually resisted for sharing the report for a long time in local community, but then they realized that was not the case. So these are some of my challenges with Gray Side of the Sky. I think I have spoken a lot. I really want to share a glimpse of the film.
तो जैसे ही मैं यहाँ पर आई और अपने घर में एंट्री ली तो पता चला ये तो बहुत डिफरेंट लाइफ है, ये तो ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है। और बस वहाँ से एक किस्म का हमारा लाइफ जो था वो बजाय आगे बढ़ने के पीछे जाना शुरू हो गया। जो मेरे हस्बैंड थे वो पहले से यहाँ रह रहे थे और मुझे पता नहीं है कि उनके ज़हन में किस तरह की सोच थी, मुझे ये पता नहीं है। सो फिर ये था कि इससे बात नहीं करनी, उधर नहीं देखना, इधर लोग ये कहते हैं, उधर लोग वो कहते हैं, और ये हमने वहाँ नहीं देखा था। सो हमारा जो ज़्यादातर बाहर जाना होता था, अपने घर से बाहर, एक डॉक्टर की अपॉइंटमेंट हो तो हम जाते थे, हॉस्पिटल की अपॉइंटमेंट हो तो हम जाते थे, बच्चा पैदा करना होता था तो हम जाते थे, या जब कभी अपने अंडरवेयर्स के लिए हमें ज़रूरत पड़ती थी तो हम बाजार जाते थे। That's it.
When I came into this country, I didn't have that sort of a problem where I couldn't speak English, and obviously I had my own thinking. But time came when my grandparents thought that I am still now old enough to get married, and they arranged my marriage. And I think with your upbringing, you also think that you have to respect your elders. Probably they were doing what was best for me. Whether I felt that I was ready to get married or not, that was irrelevant at that time. I didn't want to get married, basically. I thought I had more potential of doing well with my education, but it was time in their eyes, it was time for me to get married. Although I looked very traditional, and my thinking was very traditional as well because of the way I'd been brought up. And I think we all think along those lines, and you do what you think is best for not only your parents, because you like to make sure that your honor is still there, and also for your siblings, your brothers and sisters and your cousins, because we think of our extended families as well.
We were at the age of about 4 in 1968. My dad was here before that for 4 years, left us all in India so he could get a job and money. Then me and my brothers and sisters came in 1968 with my mum. Childhood, I remember nursery being fun. That was fine. And then going to school, always difficult because as an Asian girl, you're meant to be at home doing housework, cooking, cleaning. So mum never got the concept of actually I have to read, I have to study and do homework. So if I sort of did that, it was you're being lazy and then name calling. And it is, looking back, I can see now it would have been a very difficult time because you're trying to please your parents and stay the Asian because your culture says you must, aunties, uncles, extended family. And then you're trying to fit in at school, and obviously they don't really get you because we don't let go completely. We're holding on, we're reserved. And I think, there was few like me who were, as I say, quite happy to mix in and do that. So that was frustrating. Going through upper years, secondary, higher education, of my family, I guess I was the only one who took education seriously. So I always had hopes and aspirations of going further. with mum, it was always, no, you're going to do what you have to do, what's legally required. Going to secondary school, going to college to do my A-levels, is, when I said I'm going to the library or I'll be home because I'm at college, to her it was, I'm just lying, I'm messing around, I'm sleeping around. She, and that was difficult because like, oh, for goodness sake, mum, you can't trust me. But I know she was being probably nickeled at by her brothers and sisters and, family. And I guess as a child, you're always wanting that acceptance from your family, isn't it? And so growing up in the UK for me, I suppose in a way it seems silly, but the battle's almost been within the family, within the community, because they don't let you integrate. And you just think, but you've bought us this since the age of 4. It's really that identity crisis does become an issue because you think, I'm not really fitting into my Gujarati system anymore because my parents have disowned me, for goodness sake, because of the way I'm thinking and doing. And actually I'm not accepted by the white person or the, non-Asian, because they still name call you and they still see you as this brown person, not as British citizen, which is what I was.
I was always questioning why I was playing in the back garden while my brothers were allowed to play wherever they wanted. I had to request to be allowed to go to the park, whereas they could cycle around the block and have camps in the woods. And I just thought, something's not right. So I wanted to camp in the wood. And I don't think just from the beginning, just from small things like that, I just thought, there's an inequality and it's not on, basically. And I couldn't understand why. I mean, I as I got older, I know of the reasoning. Whether I agree or understand it, that's different, but I know of the reasoning and the fears in the community and why they keep, why I was kept like that. But I think there's a pressure for assimilation in my generation, so to be part of a community, but then there is a definite divide and you have to be part of both communities. So it's like they say, you can't, like in our language they say, you're just going to fall in the middle and drown. But I feel like we're pulled so many different directions because not only are we expected to be young British women, but we're also expected to be Muslim women, and then there's the cultural aspect of being Pakistani women, which doesn't marry up as far as I'm concerned to just being Muslim. And then you have the other side of being professionals. So not only are you expected to achieve community cohesion, and it's singularly, up to you because you're the mothers of the future, and there's a lot of emphasis on women moving things forward, and I think to an extent, that's where change will begin. But there's no support. There's just finger pointing. I think also in addition to that, you have the pressure that like for my group of friends, we're a certain age, we're not married, and we're seen as almost by some people as demonic. There must be something wrong with us. But it is, you're constantly, it's like your identity that you're forging, because you had to be so strong, is constantly being challenged. And on top of that, there is, which society are you supposed to conform with? You're constantly battling that. And then you've got the age-old issues that any woman faces, domestic violence, you're still facing that, you're still facing inequality in the workplace, you're still facing inequality in the home. So it doesn't matter whether you're black, brown, white, whatever colour. If you look at any denomination, there's still inequality in every single home. So women are still facing all of those problems. But as a woman that's grown up and born and raised in this country, you're also constantly having to defend your identity, defend your thoughts, defend your feelings, not just with the ethnic majority, but against the minority group that you come from as well.
I hope you liked this small, just a glimpse of my participants talking about their own life. So let's talk about the dissemination and the sharing of that visual report. As I said, I was not able to upload it on YouTube because one participant didn't consent, and she still is actually one of the very important participants. So that's why I couldn't leave her part and finish the report. And that's why I choose not to upload in YouTube or any social media. So the first time it was screened at the Bucks New University, and I remember it was quite a big audience in July 2013. And majority of participants actually, they joined me as well, and some of them took I think sat with me in the question and answer panel. So it was a huge hit almost. I can say that the first screening at Bucks University. And then it actually, it was screened several times. The next 3 years, not only Aylesbury Well District Council celebrated with this film Women's Day in 2014, and in 2015, actually, 2015 and 16, two other women's group, they invited me on International Women's Day to share this film with women. And Bucks District Council, Chiltern District Councils, Aylesbury Well District Councils, Thames Valley Police, and other organizations, actually, they organized several times screening for their employees, and they invited communities as well to look at the research, look at the report, and engage in the discussion. So that was the main motto, main aim of this research, actually, to engage in discussion, to understand the difficulties women go through in day-to-day life. And then it was also main actually part of White Ribbon Day conference in 2017. So in that conference, actually, all the domestic violence champions, they were present in that conference. Again, it was a very stimulating discussion after sharing this documentary film. And this is on the right-hand side, I've added one film festival, not film festival, it was art festival organized by Bucks County Museum in 2016. And the Grey Side of the Sky was a part of that film as well. And finally, I still don't know how Culture Unplugged get to know about this research project, and they actually contacted me to share the film with them, and it was selected on an online film festival and shared with worldwide audience. That was in 2015, I think. I can't remember, it was quite a long time ago. So yeah, these are the ways I shared. And as I said before, it was not uploaded on YouTube. That's why every time I had to take a CD and went to every places and screened the film and then did the question and answer sessions. I always like the question and answers after screening the film, after showing the film, because that always inspire people, encourage others to share their own stories. So these are the impact stories, which I said at the very beginning. I've always wanted to become a catalyst for change. And this actually shows how this kind of research dissemination can bring changes in individual lives, in personal lives, and in organizational way as well. So on the left-hand side, I've added one quote from community faith leaders after watching the film. And he actually was in tears after watching The Grey Side of the Sky. And he said he never realized what his mom and elder sisters actually gone through after coming to this country in 1960s. So it was quite a revelation for him as well. And not only him, I have seen people in tears many times after watching the film. So it actually changes people's mindset about Asian women in the country. And then there was one time, actually not one time, few times, I went to one English speaking course classes. And I still remember after finishing the film, there was kind of a pin drop silence. No one was talking, no one was asking anything, even though I was just standing there. And then, little by little, not everyone, few women actually started to tell their story. So I've captured ones with actually her consent. And she said that first 2 years after coming from my home country, I felt like I was in jail. So they started to tell their own stories just by watching this research. They may not have the idea that this is a qualitative research, this is an ethnographic study, but they still can relate to those participants, to those stories. And other organizations like Carer Box, they have used this film as part of their training program as well. And last but not the least, actually, I'm quite proud of this, that Rape Crisis of How We Come, they celebrated Black History Month with the Grey Side of the Sky film. So thank you. Thanks for listening to my story of my dissemination stories. And if you are interested, you may have got the link I might have shared with you. But if not, and if you are interested to watch it, please email me. Thank you. So any questions for me?
Thank you. That was really really interesting, and now I would love to watch the whole movie. So maybe we can project it, like do a session.
Yeah, why not?
With all the stuff, or do some, organize something with the university and have that opportunity. So I have two questions.
Yeah, go
on. The first one, because I saw that you had tried to get some of the impact stories of, and I wonder whether if you've done this more formally, in the sense that have you tried to assess the impact that your documentary has, and because now with REF and impact stories and universities really wanting impact stories, I wonder whether this could be a very good opportunity for you to basically assess that and measure that. And the other one is, I was thinking about how much is the visual and how much is the good story. So you were talking about, well, I look for visual stories because it's easier to disseminate. But I was wondering, is that really the visual? Although seeing the movie, I can see how powerful it is to see those women talking rather than only reading the story. But the main thing is that there is a very good story to be told. So is it mainly what makes our research being able to have a bigger impact or to transcend from the academic community, is that we actually have a good story to tell?
So to answer your first question, I was never organized that enough to sort of record all the impact, but I actually did record it. And that's why I could look at my notes from, I actually wrote down after every screening what happened, and some of the question and answer sessions were recorded as well. But I never talked about dissemination, talked about impact. That's why I say this is the first time I'm actually talking about this dissemination, visual dissemination. So I might have to think about how to maybe even write something, because it made huge impact. And I'm sure if I go to those organizations, they will write something back as well. So I know, I have to say I didn't do much, which I needed to. And second question, to answer your second question, as I said before, yes, I did this academic research, but bringing back the research in an accessible format for my participants was one of the main motto. So I was not actually thinking of my academic gain. I was thinking about how they can access. So it was kind of almost 10 years ago, but I last similar disseminations I did in 2021, actually last year, with the Mend the Gap. It was because participants wanted that visual report, not me, because they said the visual report will be much more useful for them. So yeah, that's why it actually helps them to understand what they are saying. They can see and how we are actually bringing the stories together. Yeah, but thanks for your question. Levi, you are next, I think.
Okay, thank you so much. I just identify with what you have just shared because I work with no recourse to public funds. And mostly I work with women who are on spousal visas, who have had issues. And those stories that they are saying, they sadly enough, those are the same stories we are still hearing today. You get the same stories. I've been in a prison, I've been like that. And it's so sad, really. But however, my question really is in terms of your participants. Now,
Yep.
they had to share things that were deep, things that were probably
Yeah.
traumatic as well. How
Yeah.
did you prepare your participants? Did you, at the beginning, before they participated, do something in order to help them, or was it at the end where you had to debrief? How did you deal with your participants in terms of them participating?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Levi. I had to engage them for a long time. First of all, to gain trust, to explain what I'm trying to do, not only sharing information in the language they would understand, but explaining the impact of sharing their stories and if it will be shared with many people. So but what I can tell you from that experience, they were quite relieved sharing their stories. And that's why they were quite eager to share their stories as well for the first time. And that's why some of them actually fought back to some of their own relatives and friends to share their own stories, because this is quite empowering that you are talking about only yourself, not about your family. This is the first time they were raising their voice. They were talking about what happened to them, the struggle they even faced, even cooking. There is a very interesting section, the difficulties they had finding even food ingredients. So, I mean, no one will ever think that Asian women struggled with cooking, but they did. And that's one of the findings as well. So not all the informations are traumatic, but as a researcher, I had to be very careful to include sensitive information and leave those information not to including in the on the visual report. So you have to be very careful, because ultimately this is visual and it will reach more people than any academic report.
Thank you.
I don't know whether Vaughn or Elaine who raised hands. I would go with Vaughn and then come back to Elaine.
Ooh, I got picked over Elaine. That's a special day. My question is, you had talked about wanting to produce change. You know, as a clinical social worker, my question then would be, what type of change are you looking to do? Because Christine had a really good question about your impact, but I guess I would want to know what was your intent? You know, what type of, you know, the impact would then be kind of measured by what were you trying to accomplish, or what do you want to accomplish? Because this is an ongoing potentiality for your research. My question makes sense.
Yeah, of course. As I said, I never actually measured those impacts, but I can tell you some of the women who never worked before, after the film and after taking part in many screenings, one of them became a secretary of a women's group. and she never worked before, she never did anything. And another lady actually started working. So it actually gave confidence, which I can see in simple terms. But as I said, I never actually measured those impact, which I should have. Maybe from next time. I didn't know how to measure that time, but main my main aim was to bring their stories to public so that organizations, service providers who are working with them, like Red Crosses, like district councils, like Carers Box, they know these people. They know, they would know what are these groups, why they behave differently, why they are not mixing with wider communities, why they don't do things the way a wider community wanted. So I wanted to help not only those women, not only the women who came in first generation, second generation, or third generation, but also service providers to understand the group. So I don't know whether I made those changes or helped to bring some of the changes, but at least I tried.
Well, I think the potentiality is still there because you can measure everything you just described. Being the quantitative person in the house, you can measure everything, and what you have is still like an intervention. You can still expose people. And telling their stories had kind of therapeutic value, but then hearing them, it sounds like has a value too. So I think there's a lot of things you could do as a scholar with this, with these your products to see what impact they have on people. Because we do the same thing in photo voice and phototherapy. You look at, because a lot of those have similar intentions, just not in a video format. So anyways, good job.
Yeah, I will talk to you about this one next week, maybe. Elaine.
Sorry, I've missed my unmute button, and you have provided the entertainment over lunch, Mahuya. Yeah, I have. Yeah, kind of. I haven't got my video on. I have got my video on. So I just wanted to say, I think as normal, you probably are downplaying certain aspects because I was very lucky, and I was there, I think, in I know I was there in 2013 when this was launched at Box New Uni. And in terms of impact, I think it's more of a contribution than a question, but I think it raises questions for the rest of us in this space, because this is an academic space of discussion about research and what we value. And Mahuya very much consciously made this as a visual representation, because in part many of her participants didn't read English and probably still don't read English, and the video is very, very impactful, and I would suggest that people drop her a line and see it. But actually we use this, you talked about social work practice as well, Vaughan. We use this in social work teaching at Bucks New University and with domestic abuse people coming in, and most of our students on most social work programs will talk about the lack of training, and this video was used, and then domestic abuse practitioners came in. We had students who were very resistant to hearing those stories, particularly white social work students, often social work students who sat at the top of their grade profiles. And we've had universities very resistant to including this as research, and to including this in their ref outcomes, and to including this sort of work in their knowledge exchange outcomes, because they have a concept of what research looks like, and they have a concept of what good research looks like, and it looks white, it looks male, and it looks like it fits in certain scopes. And this sort of research that's undertaken by researchers of colour or researchers who are telling different stories isn't always well received. And I think as an academy, we need to understand that and really push against those boundaries. And yes, Mahuya can do the work now and capture the impact, and she can, and we can use it here. But it's not that she hasn't pushed at those doors. She has pushed at those doors since 2013, and they've taken a long time to even think about opening. So I just wanted to put that in there, Mahuya, because it isn't that you didn't think about it. It's that you pushed and pushed, and those doors are very hard to open.
Thanks, Elaine. And I remember that the German exchange program, and we shared this film, and it was very interesting conversations we had with German students, and I now remember. Yeah. No, thanks, Elaine. Sukhbir.
Hi, Mahuya. Thank you for that. That was really interesting. I just had a query about the participants, and you say that they were Asian, and we both know that Asian is very broad, and the experiences within the Asian community is different, and that might be due to the culture, the religion, but also in terms of the migration patterns, in terms of when people migrated to the country. So was that explored in terms of maybe some of the differences within their experiences, depending upon sort of what community they were from within your research? I was just interested to know.
There was no question. I never asked this question to them, but I can tell you they were mostly from Indian subcontinent, so India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan. And some participants are from South African, so they are from Kenya, from Uganda. You know, the African crisis happened in 1970s and early 70s, so they had to leave everything and come to this country, or they went to Australia. So, but no, I didn't ask those questions that why they came from. Some of them actually told while they were sharing their childhood stories, but no, there was not a specific questions. And I really tried to sort of engage Chinese communities, engage other Indonesian communities, women, but they didn't take part. So that's why I said I went to almost 80 women and tried to engage, but then only 26 took part. And I was very pleased with those 26.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And thanks, Sadhvir, for your comments. And Warren, thank you as well. I'm glad that you think that's interesting. And Susie, yeah, of course, I will send you the film. That's not a problem at all. Sadhvir, yeah.
Hi, Mahuya. That was really, really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing with us all. I just had a quick question in terms of when you were completing kind of the research and you were having conversations with the participants, and how did you manage your own kind of values as an individual? How do you feel you managed that through the process? Because that's something that I'm interested to know about, how kind of your own personal values didn't impact on some of the research.
It almost started to impact. That's why I said I almost became one of them, because I can relate to their stories so much. And I was almost involved with all those stories. And these are the real life stories. But then I had to use my, as you said, more, I mean, not only ethics and values, I think my academic sense of kind of taking me back as an Asian lady, as an Indian lady, and use myself, my skills, my research skills, my data analysis skills as a researcher. So that actually took me a long time, but you have to make those barriers for yourself so that you know that even though you are insider, you are not biased with those views. Ultimately, yes, those are stories, those are real life stories, but those are data for your research as well. So you need to sort of work with them accordingly. So it's a really hard process, but you will learn by just going through this, yeah.
Thank you. And I got one more question, I'm sorry. So,
No,
you know,
that's fine.
in terms of through the research, you obviously touched on quite a few sensitive areas, which obviously evoked a lot of emotion. In kind of following you conducting that research, was there any signposting that was done for the participants, or was there anything offered following that?
Absolutely. I've actually made packs for every participant, for every, I mean, all the services available. And I was also working at the same times with social workers, working very closely with the local councils. And that's why it was easy for me to signpost as well. But I actually gave them a pack, which actually helped many of them, all the services available.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and the stories. And yeah, I would be interested to sharing the gray side of the sky with all of you if, yeah, we get an opportunity. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, that was great. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
Nana.
Bye-bye.